U.S.
Germany, a man has contracted the virus.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
Japan, where a bus driver contracted the virus.
Coronavirus has killed more than 100 people there and infected more than 4,500.
We have to prepare for the worst, always, because if you don't and the worst happens...
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome to War Room Pandemic.
Has contracted the virus.
This is episode 21. We are live from New York at the Glow Media headquarters, G News headquarters. It's Stephen K. Bannon, and I'm joined by Miles Glow. Got a little technical problem as we're doing remote. We'll take care of it here momentarily. Thanks, guys. Can we make sure? Let's make sure we go that good. Thank you, guys. Okay, we're here from the G News headquarters in New York City. It's episode 21. Episode 21 of War Room Pandemic. Live from New York. On the John Fredericks Radio Network, the Salem Broadcast Radio Network, America's Voice.News, in FM 99.1 in Chicago and 103.9 FM in Schaumburg. Now honored to be joined by my colleague and co-host today, Miles Glow. And Miles, thank you very much for joining us. We have a ton of important news to announce, but here's, I want to set the stage. Why are we taking really the second hour of War Room, where we do War Room 2020, in the first hour nationwide, and we discuss everything about the campaign and the election? Why have we decided over the last month to really focus on this pandemic coming out of China? Because, as we said over a month ago, this is episode 21 now. As we said over a month ago, what is happening in central China is absolutely unprecedented in world history. As you sit there in Chicago today and listen to us on 99.1 FM or 103.9 FM, as you listen to us on the Salem Radio Network, as you listen to us on the John Fredericks Radio Network, or America's Voice.News, the platform for the Trump revolution in this country, nationwide and throughout the world, 1/10 of the world's population. A world that has 7.6 billion people. 1/10 of the world's population. As you sit there today, is now either under quarantine or under a lockdown that's equivalent to quarantine throughout China. Over 1/2 of the population of the most populous nation on earth is under quarantine. And so all these statistics you see coming out of China, as you go about your daily business and you see about 50,000 or 70,000 people infected, a couple thousand people dead, and people are telling you, oh, it's just a cold, it's nothing to worry about. Well, today we're going to start talking about some economic information that's going to directly affect your life as this contagion starts to spread throughout the world. And we're going to get into the details of exactly what faces the people of China. Remember, the people of China are some of the most hardworking, decent, honest people on earth. They've been the victims of many, many, many decades of abuse by really a very indifferent government that is not open to their, are sensitive to their suffering. And we're seeing this now on really a tremendous global scale here in central China. Now, before I turn to Miles, in fact, Miles, in back of me, this is actually one of the most famous monuments in Wuhan. The reason we have this up here is my backdrop today. Can you tell the people this ancient monument, what is it in Wuhan City? A very indifferent government.
Thank you, sir. Very
sensitive to their suffering. And we're seeing this
I'm
now on
my family. I need to thank you and your team. It's work hard to help Chinese get the coronavirus. So this situation is very bad and world worse. And you still help Chinese. I really appreciate you and your team. So behind you, sir, is the Wuhan. It's a very famous called Huanghe Lou. So, China Tang Dynasty have the Bai. It's a poet. It's Shi. Poet. It's make a lot of
poems. Yeah.
So Wuhan, this is the icon of the buildings, representative. Wuhan, right before, very important in the Chinese history. that Chinese culture is very important. Wuhan is a great city. It's a great history. Sir, you do remember Hubei province before called True country.
Yeah.
Qing country.
True country.
Yeah, Qing country, true country, always number 2 and number 1. Sometimes Chinese history is the Hubei part, true country leading all of China. This is the China mental culture area.
So this central part of China is like we consider in the United States Trump country, hardworking people. It's an industrial town. It's kind of one of the industrial hearts of China. Much of the railroad traffic and the air traffic all go through Wuhan. Wuhan, we consider, it's been called, its sister city in the United States is Pittsburgh. And it's been called the Pittsburgh of China. So it's a very centrally located, very hardworking city.
Yes, sir. You know more than me about Wuhan. Seriously, is genius. Also, you know, Wuhan have the nickname. It's called nickname. It's it's the head, the bear. So this is the very strong life. Head, the bigger, you know, eagles.
Yes.
Head eagles.
Yes.
So they're very tough and very genius. And the Chinese culture, the history, is very important.
Important, tough.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what this epidemic or this pandemic is going on there. It's horrific. We're going to get to that in a moment, the scale of it. I want to say something for the American audience particularly. You know, Dr. Stephen Hatfield, who's our consultant and advisor on the show, a very famous researcher from the Biomedical Research Center of the U.S. Army up in Frederick, Maryland. He's also an adjunct professor of studying viruses over George Washington. He's a renowned world expert. He's actually on assignment today, working with some people in a working group to try and get their arms around this virus. But Dr. Hatfield was told us, remember, consistently since the show started, that the most perfect laboratory, Miles, that we were going to have was the Princess cruise ship that had been quarantined in Yokohama. Well, we're here to announce today that over 600 people of the 3,700 on board now have coronavirus. And I think that is actually, quite frankly, it's stunned the people that are studying this about how quickly it spread throughout the passengers. I believe it's 200 passengers, Americans, were actually sent to the United States. They're under quarantine. And in fact, I think Jack Maxey, who's here with us in New York today, has informed me that they're going to be completely retested now, and I think maybe even reset the quarantine period in the United States. But the one thing that Dr. Hatfield told us is this being such a important laboratory that the scientists can actually study it. I think they're all very, very, very surprised, Miles, by how quickly this thing transmitted onto the ship. There's another vessel that pulled into Cambodia, another one of these cruise ships, and they allowed the passengers after being tested to go off. Now it looks like there may be one of the passengers who tested negative now may be out in the population. Now they think it may be actually testing positive. One of the things that concerns the scientists here is really what's called the asymptomatic period, the time that you look like you're normal, but you may be transmitting this disease to other people. Also, how long it actually stays on the surface material. We're having reports in areas of China that either putting ultraviolet light on the money, or they're actually burning the cash because they don't want the cash to transmit the disease. One of the things that's most important, particularly for the American audience and people in the United States, is that the reports are coming out, as we said they were going to weeks and weeks ago. The reports are now coming out about how it's affecting the world economy. The first thing you should know is Oxford Economics, which is one of the most sophisticated analytical companies in the world. They are consultants to many, many Fortune 500 companies throughout the world. They've just come out this morning and announced that they believe that the coronavirus to date of what they've seen, if it doesn't get worse, is going to take off at least over 1.1% of growth from the world's economy. That'll be over $1 trillion in the world's economy. We've also got from the Financial Times of London today, I'll hold this up, one of the lead stories is in China itself. It's got the stores, the Puma, there we go right there, the Puma and the Adidas stores, sales are off there 90%. as and in Germany, where I think those companies are headquartered, they're announcing they're going to have a very big downturn in their sales as products and sales in China dropped 90%. Also, Procter & Gamble and Yum Brands, two different companies, multi-billion-dollar companies. Procter & Gamble, one of the biggest companies in the United States. Procter & Gamble has just announced that the coronavirus and the spread of the coronavirus will have a material effect, a material impact into 2020 into both their revenues and their earnings. And so we're now starting to see this spread throughout the world and have a major impact. Another aspect that's caught people unawares or quite shocked is in South Korea. There's a church in South Korea near a U.S. Army base. 37 members of that church have now tested positive for coronavirus. And now they think the Army base has shut down the schools. The Army base, I think, has shut down the theaters. I think they're monitoring the commissaries and other aspects of the Army base to make sure it does not spread there. So the one thing we know from it, particularly studying what's going on with this cruise ship, the Princess cruise ship in Yokohama, as this thing spreads very quickly, Miles. And also some bad news from the Princess ship is that the first two, the CDC I think reported this morning, that the first two passengers on that ship, I believe, Jack, actually I'm correct, the first two passengers have actually died. So 600 people, of 3,700, 600 tests are testing positive, and the first two individuals have died. Now, Miles, I want to go to something. I'm going to get to Lancet magazine in a second. Lancet is the very famous British publication that, along with Hong Kong University, the Imperial College in London, have really been doing a tremendous job, in addition to the World Health Organization, CDC, of studying this. Last night, the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, went back and redid the way that they calculate who is sick, who's infected, and who's actually dying. And this has kind of caught, many of the organizations throughout the world who said, hey, we want you to have a broader definition, right? And so that last week, if you saw in their official numbers, which we argue are artificially low, they did have a spike of 15,000 in a day. And that's because they reset, because the World Health Organization and the CDC, these other operations, Hong Kong University, Dr. Gabriel Leung, recommended they go to a broader definition of who's sick. Last night, the Chinese Communist Party decided to go back and to reset that and go back to the old definition. The old definition be where you're actually test positive and you're hospitalized. Well, one of the problems is there are just only so many hospitals and hospital beds, etc., in Wuhan and in the central provinces. So people are now concerned we're going back to try to lessen for the Chinese Communist Party. I think the question that people have, and I want to address with you before we get to the Lancet magazine, is can you describe to people what is actually going on in Wuhan? We're getting very, very little information as we look at these cities and we look at the videos. And these are cities that are, quite frankly, twice as large. If you're in Chicago audience, it's 2 or 3 times the size of Chicago. Okay, these are massive cities, 40% more population than New York. Wuhan itself has 14 million people, or at least it had it before the outbreak of this. The province itself has anywhere between 60 and 80 million people. The physical size of it's the size of France. Can you describe to our audience right now what is actually going on in Wuhan, in the central province of China, that's not being reported?
Thank you, sir. I think now Wuhan the situation even worse. You don't need to, spend your timing, follows any CCP top of the data. There's the infected standards. You don't need to do
You
it.
think any effort spent on that's a waste of time?
Yeah.
That's all a lie.
I give you example, all the lie. I give you example. Last 20 hours, it's the CCTV is the television. They talk all the Chinese. So we prepare contribution, give the Hubei province 40 piece is incinerate.
You're saying they said on CCTV last night, we're sending you 40 incinerators to cremate the dead.
Yeah, so every incinerator every day they can burn the body, cremation body, 50 pieces.
And they have to cremate all the bodies when they come out. The bodies, the standard process right now is to cremate the body.
Yeah, Wuhan also have the 47 crematory. The crematory, every crematory have 19 This is the internet rate.
Why do I have that many crematories if I only have 2,000? I only have 2,000 dead.
Yeah. Now.
Why do they have 700 million people locked down that they admit? The Chinese Communist Party admits 700 million people.
It's right.
And why and only 70,000 sick?
Yeah. So
you think that's a miss?
Yes. Crematory, sir, every day confirmed 25,000, cremation body. This is cremation. Now, 24 hours of work, cannot all the burned body finish. We get more 40. Move the ball.
So your sources are telling you. Your sources are telling you. By the way, this is Miles is a quite controversial person in China. He's the number one whistleblower. He's the one that outed the corruption of H&A, the largest financial company in the world, that the Chinese said he was lying. It turned out it was absolutely correct. You were the one that outed the situation with the chairman being, accidentally falling off a wall in France, that you said that it was not accidental. All that turned out to be correct.
Last 20 hours, it collapsed.
H&A is now financial in China?
Yes, in China, financial is collapsed.
This is a result of this pandemic?
Yeah, also related, but not a fundamental reason. Fundamental reason must be collapsed.
You said for many years it was going to collapse. You said a Ponzi scheme.
Yes.
But I want to go back to this question, because this is what is going to get to the Lancet magazine in a second about the bioweapon. You have been saying for many, many weeks that the CCP is lying to the West. The CCP does not want any assistance from the West. When I went on Fox TV and said they got to take CDC members and doctors and nurses, said they're never going to do that. Because, number one, it will show that the foreign devils in America had to save them, number one. Number two, they don't want the information shared about what's really going on. And so my question gets back to, if they have 700 million people, 10% of the world's population, on some sort of lockdown or quarantine throughout a country that's physically bigger than the United States, right? How can they sit there, and how can the mainstream media still believe the fact that they say there's only 70,000 people infected, when we know on a boat in Yokohama, where there were only 3,600 people on the boat, 600 are infected? Okay? And we know this because that has been the perfect laboratory to test this disease. Plus 2 are dead. So we have 2 dead. We have 600 infected on a 3,700 people, right? And that is, if you compare that to the 700 million that are, quarantined, like the 3,600 on Yokohama, it then gets to be millions, which you've been saying. You've said from the beginning there's 3 or 4 million people that are infected, and that would make sense given the scale of this.
Sir, you need to ask 5 questions.
5 questions.
5 questions.
Okay.
Everybody can know the answer.
Okay.
Yokohama, you look at this, the transmission rate.
The transmission rate on Yokohama.
Yeah.
Okay.
Secondly, Wuhan, how many crematory? It's the 47. It's the work 24 hours.
You're just saying, count the crematoriums in Wuhan. They're working 24 hours a day. Just do the body count, whatever that would be.
23,000 body.
The capacity. Okay.
Right? Now they get a new one as a 40.
Okay.
Is now instantly
right. So you're saying we got to count the crematoriums. Okay, fine. So it's the boat in Yokohama.
Yeah.
The transmission rate. Yeah. The cremations in Wuhan. Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah. 3. How many people? We just found CCTV in the form of another province, North China, West China,
yes.
send to doctor go to Wuhan. We say 300,000. You just 70,000 infection. Why is 300,000 people? This is 3, right?
You're saying 300,000 that are already admitted being infected in either northern China up by the Mongolian, Russian, North Korean border, now to the west, where the Uyghurs are.
So this is the 4, right?
Right.
5, very important. You look now, how many masks?
How many masks?
Alcohol as a house care specialist.
Okay.
Mass care in the specialist.
Yes.
Finish. Where go? Chapter 7, 70,000.
Right.
In fact, you don't need this.
Don't need a mask.
So let's make 5 questions. I can give you answer.
We're gonna take those 5 questions, and Jack Maxey and the team, I think they're excellent questions, and they're going to be asked. And why do we keep pressing on Wuhan? Because Wuhan is Chernobyl. This is a biological Chernobyl.
Even worse.
Even worse than Chernobyl.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As people understand the tragedy that Chernobyl was, but even could have been worse if it was not handled. That's the situation we have here. I want to give an anecdote. We actually made inquiries. All day long, we're calling and contacting people we know in China. It was specifically about these Foxconn, the Foxconn factories in southern China. Remember, Foxconn is run by Terry Gros, who, as any followers of our China coverage know, was the individual that tried to run for the presidency of Taiwan, totally CCP. My colleague Miles Gros blew him up, identified him as a CCP candidate. He lost. One of the wealthiest and strongest industrialists in China. The Foxconn makes essentially the Apple iPhone. Okay, it's the #1 manufacturer for Apple phones. And in the Chicago audience, you know, they had this big controversy up in Wisconsin. This factory is either not going to be a factory or whatever. The other day we asked, why are these factories not opening up fast enough? Right? Because Terry Gros doesn't have any concern about his people at all. And they said, look, we airshipped in the mask. We airshipped in the mask, and the CCP basically confiscated the mask and kept them from themselves. They wouldn't send them to the factory workers. So they said we couldn't even open them.
With Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room. Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. War Room Pandemic. We are live from the Himalaya Embassy, which is the broadcasting center of G News, the news service that founded by Miles Gros, which is he's the leading whistleblower in China, and someone that's really brought a lot of truth to what's going on in China to the West. This is episode 21 of War Room Pandemic. It is Thursday, the 20th of February, the year of our Lord 2020. We've been doing this show for over a month. And I have to tell you, when we first started it, we're live on the John Fredericks Radio Network, on America's Voice.news, streaming throughout the world. Also on FM 99.1 in Chicago, FM 103.9 in Schaumburg, the Chicago suburbs, and throughout the nation, also on the Salem Broadcast Radio Network. We're also on podcast. We're over 2.7 million downloads now on our podcast. You can get the podcast everywhere, Spotify, Apple, on every major platform. And we really want to thank all the everybody that listens every day. So we were mocked and ridiculed when we started the show, 4 weeks ago. People saying, this is typical Bannon, his hair's on fire about something. And people, some people have a cold in China, somebody got the flu, and next thing you know, Bannon's making a big deal about it. Well, the reason we did that is, as you know, I spend a considerable amount of my time working on issues around China. I'm chairman of the Rule of Law Society. I'm a member of the Committee on the Present Danger of China. I work with Miles on many of the things on G News to be on there and try to give interviews or to broadcast with Miles when Miles broadcasts into China. And here's the reason. What's happening with the Chinese people with this dictatorship of the CCP is absolutely central to the economy and well-being of the entire planet, but particularly the United States. And the reason is that because of globalization, our economies are totally interlinked. The supply chains are totally interlinked. So what we said over a month ago is that eventually you're going to start having major American corporations that employ people throughout the world and pay wages in the United States. They're going to be announcing that 2020 is not going to be as great as they thought it was because of what is happening in Wuhan, China. Now, one of the things that's come up in this entire process is exactly what this is and how it got started. Okay, so this is it's a virus, right? It's a member of the SARS family, and also people would say a cold or flu virus. And the situation is that it was supposedly all started in this what's called a wet market in Wuhan, China. And Wuhan, China being, as I said, the Pittsburgh of China on the Yangtze River in the central heart of China, kind of a place with hardworking, people like the deplorables of the Trump supporters. And they all said it came out of this wet market where people go and as a delicacy, they buy live animals and eat the live animals and transmit it. Well, now we know that is a lie, right? The World Health Organization and the CDC and all the experts now understand that this did not come from that wet market, but it came from some time prior to that. And the question is, it turns out a couple of miles from that wet market is a level 4 biological lab. Now, what does that mean? There are only a handful of these throughout the world and where they really study these viruses. And this was asked for by the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese government after the SARS problem in the early 2000s. They needed their own lab there to study vaccines and to study, et cetera. And as people know, the Chinese people and some of the Chinese scientists are among the most advanced in the world. In fact, one of the great heroes of SARS and the great heroes of this entire situation is Dr. Gabriel Leung at the University of Hong Kong. He's what we call the virus hunter. And it's some of his analysis that we've been calling on and looking at over the past several weeks. Now, Senator Tom Cotton, and Senator Tom Cotton, as everyone knows in the United States, is one of the top, most sophisticated individuals about national security. And what Tom Cotton has been saying is that, hey, is it just a coincidence that that lab is near this wet market or is in Wuhan? You know, he's not a conspiracy theory guy, but like me, also believes there's no coincidences. And did something happen in that laboratory? Did something happen around that laboratory? And so this is a question he's been asking. And what Senator Cotton has said it is incumbent. It's the responsibility of the Chinese Communist Party. It's the responsibility of those people in charge in China to have total transparency and to have ability for the world to actually understand what happened, because now we believe that this may have started on December 1st. They talk about patient 0 may be December 1st. Or now they're saying it could have even started earlier. Dr. Stephen Hatfield was on the show yesterday and said some scientists, they think this may have started in November. It may have started in early November. You might have had a animal to a human transmission and then human to human transmission. And as we go back to the perfect laboratory, where's the perfect laboratory? The perfect laboratory is moored in Yokohama, Japan. That's a cruise ship that people was totally quarantined off. 3,700 passengers, 600 passengers have now tested positive for the coronavirus. 2 are dead. Okay? So going back to how this started, what caused it, how do we find a vaccine for it, is absolutely essential as this now spreads throughout the world. And remember, today, there are over 30 countries in the world where we now have cases of coronavirus. Now, they're just the beginning cases. But to show you the scale of it, not just in South Korea, where we have the church with 3,700, that the U.S. Army base has taken precautions to shut down the schools. In Iran, it's been now out that the sacred city in the Shiite religion, the city of Qom, with many mosques and many universities and many places, historical places for that version of the Islamic faith, and particularly the Shiite version of the Islamic faith. The entire city, I think, is now going to go to some shutdown or some portion of potential quarantine. I think there are 50 cases that have now been shown to be in as far away as Iran. So the central part gets to be what happened in Wuhan, how this got started, what's the aspects of it. Now, Miles, I want to be very specific because I think this kind of addresses Senator Cotton, people like Bill Gertz, yourself and myself, and I did call this exactly how it's going to happen. Lancet magazine, and the people at Lancet is one of the most highly respected peer-to-peer scientific magazines in the world. It's published in the United Kingdom, and along with the Imperial College in London, Hong Kong University with Dr. Leung, other organizations like this, out over and above the World Health Organization in Geneva and the CDC in Atlanta, they've done an excellent job of modeling this and trying to stay on this from the beginning, and they've actually disagreed from the very beginning with the numbers the CCP has been showing us. But what they said today, they actually said that all the evidence that they see and all the evidence that the most prominent virus hunters in the world see lead them to the conclusion that it's low probability, right, that this occurred from any other way than some natural transmission from animal kingdom to humans and then human to human transmission. And in fact, they said I don't think they used the word conspiracy, but they said if people continue to push that it was not natural, but it was somehow came out of the lab, either a work on a vaccine that inadvertently got out or even work on a weapon that got out, that will only make it more difficult for the Chinese Communist Party to be open and to have full transparency so that people can get in there and find out what's going on. And as this article came out this morning, you should know in the pre-show, I talked to Miles about this. I said, we have to address this because it really is implying Senator Cotton, Bill Gertz of the Washington Times, Miles Guo, Steve Bannon, and others, even by talking about this, is making it worse. Now, as we just came back from commercial break, guess what? Surprise, surprise. The People's Daily, the propaganda arm, remember, you have CCTV, you have the People's Daily, you have the Global Times, that are propaganda arms of their state media. And hey, this is not me saying this. This is now Mike Pompeo and the State Department has now designated as of yesterday that these are all state-controlled media propaganda arms. And so don't listen to Steve Bannon, and you don't need to go to War Room Pandemic or to listen to the Committee on Present Danger or go to G News. It's the State Department saying that. People's Daily's already come out and already started to weaponize this information to say, these are all the guys that typically say the CCP is evil, the CCP are devils, and what they're trying to do is really slow down the helping of this situation. So, Miles, I want to turn to you, since you know this better than anybody. You're the most renowned, or infamous, however you want to say it, infamous to the Chinese Communist Party, renowned to the people in China, whistleblower. Where do we stand on this? And then now we have Lancet, and we even had Dr. Hatfield, the scientists, saying it appears from all the evidence they see that this is a natural concurrence, and that, as Tom Cotton saying, it's incumbent upon the CCP to release this. Miles Guo, Steve Bannon, Bill Gertz, all these wingnuts, they're just hurting the situation.
Thank you, sir. Very easy. The magazine, I never watch, I never see. This is the iceberg, I don't know where from. Could you give me answer, sir? The iceberg is the magazine. This is the article, the Lancet. Any Chinese can watch it. Any Chinese insider can buy the magazine. Any Chinese iceberg can send article go there from natural. Impossible. No, this is the iceberg.
You're saying real Chinese experts that have real information are not allowed to share that information.
They just want to talk to west side, west of the world, America, Europe. Why they don't want this magazine? Chinese can buy, Chinese can read, because China have the cyber firewall.
The firewall.
China iceberg cannot talk to it. Even talk to it, immediately arrest you.
Are you making the case? I want to make sure I translate for the American. Are you making the case that real experts in China, because of the firewall, because of suppression, are not able to transmit this information to the West?
Yes. This it is. But why? Is you talk the truth, don't want the Chinese to know the truth. No Chinese can go to internet, watch the article. I like you talk the truth. Even the truth, I like. Why this is the
why has the CCP kept the? I said on Fox News 2 weeks ago, the firewall must come down. You do on G News these videos. We saw about 6 minutes of the videos yesterday. This horrific things of.
You're the genius, sir.
But it is very important for people to see it. But why? What justification does the Chinese Communist Party have on keeping a firewall? And for our American audience, essentially the people in China can't get full access to the internet. It's blocked by technological efforts of the Chinese Communist Party so that people can't get true information coming from the West. What is the justification in your mind today of why the CCP, in this horrific, quarantine process, have not dropped the...
This is the magazine. Very easy. Why is the CCP? Don't send the iceberg go to Wuhan, see something. The old iceberg never go to Wuhan and China iceberg. Now you can create the critical, you say, U.S. truth. Oh, this is the animal, not from natural. I don't believe.
You don't believe
American hamburger is from natural.
Why do you not? Okay, since the evidence of the leading experts, and they're sending a letter out, says in their analysis of and early on you had things from IIT in India and others, they're saying it looked like it was artificial, was made. But now you've had enough looking at the genome sequencing by experts, they're saying it leads them to believe it's natural. Why is it that certain dissidents or people like you that are very plugged in to China, why do you guys continue to argue that, hey, they're not allowing you to go to Wuhan for the simple reasons they don't want you to see the evidence in Wuhan?
Easy, sir. Send the American CDC, WHO, also the magazine iceberg. Go to Hubei province, go to China. Then they back, they say, this is the animal from nature, the coronavirus, I believe. Everything's back. Even they never go to the China, go to Hubei province, they say, now we find out the reason. Primary reason is from the natural. This is crazy. Where you found the results? Where you found the evidence?
So you believe what Tom?
Why you cyber control?
Tom Cotton, Senator Tom Cotton, who is not
great man,
not a bomb thrower. Really appreciate it. Has great love for the Chinese people. What Tom Cotton is saying, and I don't think Lancet's hearing, he's saying, hey, it's incumbent upon the Chinese Communist Party to open up every piece of information in that lab for the world to see. For CDC, for WHO, for Lancet Magazine, for Dr. Leung in Hong Kong, the world's experts, it's incumbent upon them to be oversharing of information. Do you believe Tom Cotton's correct, or do you believe Lancet and the great professors and guys in Europe?
Tom Cotton, no benefit from China. This is a magazine. I want to ask the magazine, why you don't send your expert go to China to do something? Do you have any benefit from China, from CCP? Sir, I get the inside information. CCP, Xi Jinping and Wang Qishan just yesterday make the 3 strategy. One strategy,
hold it. Xi and Wang Qishan are the number 1 and 2.
Yeah.
One and two guys, emperor and his assistant in China, right?
3 strategy for the fight the coronavirus. 1, propaganda, international West side.
Propaganda to the West.
Yeah.
That's their number 1 strategy. Okay.
You look at the few days, all the outside talk, China, good job.
Yes.
Secondly, strategy must be win is the economy. Don't close the Shanghai share market. Don't close the Shenzhen, Hong Kong share market. They are. In
other words, they must keep the stock markets open. Must keep everything, the economy going.
Yeah, because the supply chain is the
supply chain.
Out.
Yes.
You're saying
the supply chain can't break down.
All the production chains break off. They don't. This economy must win. Even if it's defeat, it's CCP die. Second war, 3 war, they can close the lockdown, quarantine. They not quarantine. They close Hubei, Paris. You can die. You don't go out. But all the people must go back to work in Shenzhen, in Wuhan, in Beijing, in everywhere, because they don't like the economy down.
Okay, this
so
is big.
They want inside the war. They must go back to work.
Okay. Let me just go back. Number 1, a propaganda campaign into the West that says they're doing a good job. Okay.
You get all the fake information.
Right. Number 2, that is of paramount importance that the economy not collapse, because the economy collapses, the regime will collapse.
Correct.
So they will do anything. Keep pumping money into the Shanghai stock market, get the factories, particularly in Shenzhen in southern China, open so they can start making the iPhones and shipping them to the West. Number 3, don't worry about the health of the people, Ube. We're beyond that. Do a quarantine to basically essentially lock them in like they did in Chernobyl. Keep those people in it first so that Shenzhen and the other places in southern China don't get infected and you can open the factories. But it's basically an internal war against the Chinese people.
This is why yesterday they signed a 40 piece. It's the incentive rate for the premier.
We're going to check this. You're saying the incinerators. You're saying the incinerators are going to Wuhan and Hubei, and that is to
40 new factories. I know the truth, not the 40. I think it's more than 40,000. So, sir, they don't care Hubei how many people die. They just want the economy stronger.
Here's what the American people, I think many people in the West are having a hard time getting off of. You mentioned this yesterday, and I got a lot of feedback. People texting me and emailing me. You made a comment that if a natural disaster or something like this had happened in the United States or in Europe or any other country, India, that President Trump or President Modi or Boris Johnson, whatever, at some point in time would go to that area to show the people symbolically, I'm here to help you in assistance. But now, we now know that this virus started probably in mid to late November, right? Maybe even earlier. And it was known by the Chinese Communist Party executives in at least early to mid-December. So we're now almost 4 months into this, with 700 million people think Wang Qishan and President Xi have not gone down to Wuhan. They have not sat in back of this magnificent historical structure that I'm seeing in front of the image of today, ancient city of Wuhan. They have not gone there. The question is, if this being so bad, how can they not go and show the Chinese people that they're there for them, they're there to help them?
Sir, easy. I found my English. It's the 100 internal struggle.
Internal struggle.
You see that some people, Sun Chunlan, Chen Wei general, go there.
Chen Wei is the major general of biological warfare
They
that was
just
sent there.
political scapegoat. Just political victim. They victim.
You're saying they're a victim like the people that have the
Yeah.
virus, because they're going to go and either be fired or could die.
Yeah, this is Li Keqiang first go there. Li Keqiang, we have zero power. Xi Jinping go die there. I like you die.
Like
So,
the head of the hospital just died of the virus.
Even you in China, want to die, first started 4月班的 go to Wuhan. 可以 die. 第二个什么样子 go to Wuhan. Not
Tom
the
Cotton. They will send Tom Cotton.
Yes, not the worst with what you went there. So, sir, this is
Hang on, before
Yeah.
we go forward, I think this is important for the American people to understand, and this is important for people of the world to understand. With 700 million people in lockdown or quarantine, if there were only 2,000 dead, Xi and Wang Qishan would have been there weeks ago. The reason they're not down there, they don't want to take direct local responsibility, but as importantly, they don't want to die, right? They don't want to die.
They fear, they liar.
They fear death.
Political scapegoat, victim people. Another side.
He has to go himself. Like Modi would have to go, or Boris Johnson would have to go.
It's evil. Every decision is internal, struggle. The struggle. All Americans think this is good, it's no. No, this is evil, and I'm not evil.
Okay, Miles, we got 2 minutes. I want to ask you in 1 minute. How many victims do you think potentially could come out of central China? How many people do you ultimately think could be infected? And in your best guesstimate, what do you think, how many people could die in China? Victims of the Chinese people, how many could die?
Sir, I don't want to do too bad, but I think now is more the
Infected 4 million.
That's 200.
More than 250,000 dead.
I think
You think the worst has not gotten here? You think it's worse to come?
Yeah, worst come 29. After 29, all the world, all the China, I think over the 10 million.
Over 10 million. Over 10 million sick, over 10 million dead ultimately.
In fact.
In fact, 10 million.
Yeah, finally, I think dies people more than million.
Okay. Okay.
Because they cover